Always excited when I have the next gentleman on the podcast. It's been a little bit since his last appearance, so I figured we were a little bit overdue. I always introduce him the same way as the man who needs no introduction, but hobby icon, as I always say, Dr. James Beckett. Welcome to Sports Card Nation.
I would say the pleasure's all mine, but you said the pleasure's all yours. So
It it
I'm going to enjoy it.
it
John.
Well, I appreciate that. You've been on obviously multiple times. We do Hobby Hotline together. One thing I've never really conversated with you about, at least extensively, is the selling aspect. I sell cards obviously online. I set up at shows. You're a ComC power seller. You can correct me if I'm wrong. So I wanted sort of to pick your brain when it comes to selling. I'm sure other people are curious, like I am as well. I mean, let's be honest, Dr. Jim. Like, you don't have to sell cards. You'd be more than fine if you didn't. Same here. So, what is it about the aspect of selling some cards that you enjoy?
Well, the original 1% rule that I had, because I really need to have less cards
Yeah.
because I have too many. Um, the original 1% rule is I noticed that on ComC, I was selling 1% of my inventory a month. And I thought if I just put more stuff on ComC, I'll sell 1% a month. The problem is I'm putting more than 1% a month on ComC. So it doesn't shrink, but it is a way to get cards that people want that are in many cases true collectors can get cards of their player, a specific card, and and uh, and have an easy way to get it for their collection. So that's been the fun of it for me. But my 1% rule, that really has to, that's why I introduced eBay because I wasn't selling fast enough on ComC. No fault of ComC's, but selling individual cards, I needed to sell groups of cards so that I've added eBay into the mix a couple of years ago.
So you're sort of new to eBay, at least in, like you said, in the last
Yeah,
few
I mean, I
years.
bought some stuff. I'd probably sold some stuff a long time ago, but not really faithfully putting lots up. I learned from Mike Summer that eBay likes it if you put up regular postings of lots for sale or items for sale. If you put something up and then 3 months later you put some more stuff up, you just don't get found in the searches.
How much of the inventory that you list, how much of it's stuff you've had for a while versus stuff maybe through the singles club or going to the Dallas card show? What percentage of, can you clarify to that level?
Well, nowadays it's probably 50-50 because I'm going through stuff that I have that I'm trying to thin out. Because, like I said, I'm trying to get rid of 1% a month. But then if I buy something at a show, which I mainly just buy at the National a little bit and the Dallas card shows here, and dollar box stuff, which is perfect for ComC. You just have to be patient. It's not like it's going to immediately sell on ComC that you bought it for $1 and then it sells immediately for $5 on ComC. But over the course of the next 5 years, yes, it probably will sell for $5 when the person that sees it wants it. But it's not a. I don't do quick flips too much on ComC. I don't. That's not what I use it for. In fact, most of the flippers, if you're going to sell, they're flipping it. They're going to then sell it to somebody else. So I want to price it pretty much retail, and so then somebody that's a collector says, "I want this card. I'm not flipping it. I'm putting it in my collection." So that's kind of the way. Every card needs to find a home, John.
Yeah, well, you won't get an argument from me there. And sometimes, like you said, I'm trying take a page out of your book and kind of knock my show inventory down and really be selective. When it comes to my PC stuff, which is Hall of Fame rookies, usually graded on the graded side of the house. But with Tom C, like everyone, you might have a different deal, but you have to be strategic too because it could cost 50 cents a card to list. I use ComC as well, not probably as much as you do, but I always usually like bring the cards when they're at a show in person. So, the national being in Cleveland, that's drivable for me. So I'll probably have a 800 count box that I'll bring where I can hand deliver it. But you got, with that cost, you'd have to make sure you're listing stuff that makes sense to list. Is that something
Well,
you
there's 2
got?
things. I mean, if
Yeah,
you're
go ahead.
indiscriminately posting to ComC, then you're not really gonna have a great experience. The optimal experience is either number 1, well, actually, the optimal experience is to be on there enough that you know what sells and what there's a lot of there. There's some stuff that sells on there, but it's under 50 cents. And so you can't buy it for a dollar, pay 50 cents, ship it there or bring it to them, and then find out that they're available for 50 cents. And you just lost money. And so you also, it's not very practical to look up each card. And so that's why people throw things in the dollar box. It's just a little bit better card, but it's not, it's not a guarantee. It's not a high demand player. It's not a high demand insert or something like that. But if so, my edge now is that I'm familiar with the almanacs and what's what out there, but I also know what sells on ComC. So I have a big advantage. Rich is like that too. He knows the cards, but he's also familiar with ComC. But he's not real big on ComC, obviously, because he works there. But he sells at shows. I don't sell at shows. So I'm just those are my two outlets.
So once you list the card on we'll use ComC for example. I know you mentioned eBay, but once you list the card on ComC and then you set your selling price, do you ever go back and adjust it? Let's say it's a Christian McCaffrey, and so you listed it before the season starts, and then he's playing lights out. Do you go back and make adjustments, or once it's listed, and if it's a deal for somebody, kudos to them for finding it.
Well, there's a catch to that. I mean, number one, 90% of my reviewing the prices that I have is to lower, to see that, hey, they're not selling. I'm going to lower the price. Maybe somebody is lower than me, and I really can afford to lower my price, and it's just been sitting there for a long time. So that's more than 90% of it. In fact, it's probably 99% of it. I don't go through my inventory to see what can I increase. So what happens with this is a little bit controversial and it makes people mad, but I a lot of times accept offers, but not always. And sometimes if they offer on a Christian McCaffrey card that I priced many years ago, as many years ago as it could be, because he's not that old of a player. But say 4 years ago, I posted it, and the price has doubled. Well, the person should just buy it. But when they make me an offer, I say, "Do I want to?" I'm considering the offer, and my consideration is that they should have bought it, not made me a lowball offer on something that's now easily worth double. And so I'll change the price. I'll reject their offer. And if I had a chance to send them a message, I'd say, "Sorry, dude, but this was low hanging fruit. You should have picked it and eaten it." And so I'll put the price where it should be. But that's not even 1%. That's not even 1%. In fact, most offers I just accept. And if it's gone up a little bit, I just accept it. But if it's doubled, I I just think there who's being greedy? Am I being greedy by doubling the price? Are they being greedy by thinking I'm going to get an even bigger steal of offering half off or whatever of something that was already a great deal? So it's just, ComC does not provide this opportunity to do DMs and things like that. So it's sort of anonymous and people can get frustrated. But if it's there and it's for sale, they can just buy it. And if they make an offer, I can either accept or reject. But when I reject, it's almost always to raise the price.
Yeah, and I'll side with you. Like, I agree with you, Dr. Jim. I mean, if it's kind of a steal because you haven't adjusted the prices to begin with, and then they're haggling some more. I think for some people, I don't want to again paint with a broad brush. I think for some people, it's sort of in their DNA to sort of haggle or just try to get it even lower. I think sometimes as a buyer, I know even myself when I buy cards on a selling platform, if the deal is good, why I'm just hey buy it now, quickly get it in my cart and pay for it rather than try to get a quarter, 50 cents, a dollar more off. I mean, if it's not a situation like that where I'm trying to get it for where it's beneficial to me, maybe if I'm planning to resell it, that's one thing. But if it's already a deal, like you said, just go ahead and pull the trigger and make the purchase. So I don't blame you, and I'm probably done the same thing. And you
Well,
just got to
you
know
might
when the
have. I mean,
deals are.
it's I don't think necessarily I'm teaching them a lesson, but it's there should be a lesson learned. Instead of getting mad at me for raising the price, I think, I had my chance, I blew it. The same thing could happen at a card show. If you've got your showcase there and they say, "Hey," they don't say how much for this card. They say, "That card you've got for $10 there, and you haven't priced it for 6 months. You priced it from 6 months ago. $10. Would you take 5?" You pull it out, you look at it, you say, "Oh my goodness, this is a parallel. I mispriced this." What are you gonna do? You're not gonna give it to
Well,
him for $10, and if he says, "I'll give you 10 for it," then, that's an awkward conversation.
I would honor the price. Let's say it's
I'm
like
saying you
well
can honor
under.
the price.
But if he walks away, if that person walks
Exactly.
away,
Yes.
then I might get my price gun out and
Well, you should.
adjust
You
it.
should.
But they're gonna get that first crack, and I
Exactly.
might even say that. I might even tell that to him, like, I'm not trying to be a salesman here. It's well underpriced. You caught it. If you want it for that, you can buy it. Good deal for you. If you pass on it, I'm about to pull it out there and put a different price on it. So
But, if
it
you said
balls
that
in
to
you.
somebody at a show, they'd think, "That's salesmanship. He's just trying to talk me into buying this because he says, 'If you don't buy it, I'm gonna double the price.'" I mean, people are sometimes suspicious, even though I think your intentions would be true. "I'm gonna put
Yeah, well,
on this card after you walk away." And they think, "Sure you are, buddy."
yeah, no, I've had that situation occur, and I've even talked about it on this show as a show dealer. Like when I price my cards, there's many times I sort of build in a haggle price. In other words, I know I'm probably someone's going to offer less, so I sort of
Yeah.
that's in the back of my mind as I price the cards, And I always tell somebody, if you're buying three, four, or more cards, I'm more likely to give you, you know, uh, sometimes actually in many cases, Dr. Jim, some people will hand me 4 or 5 cards, not ask for a deal, and I'll say, hey, I got $20 all total. They come up to 20, $15. Like I'll without them even haggling $4 or $5 off. So I'm more apt to give a deal if someone's buying multiple cards rather
Me too.
than one.
Yeah, on
But I
ComC
do.
or eBay, either one. If they're doing a multiple offer on something, it's much more likely to be accepted.
Yeah, and that's not to say again, like the example you brought. If I have a $10 card and it's in the case, or $20 card and it's in the case, and someone says, "Would you take 15 for that?" I may very well do that, but I'm more apt to deal when they're taking other cards. And again, a lot of times I just kind of give a deal without I sometimes I get that shock look like thank you, they weren't even necessarily expecting it. Just and maybe it comes from what I did my first show at 15 of 36 years of doing shows. You just learn a few things along the way. When it comes to copying, like to list stuff, do you spend a lot of time on that, or you just know, hey, I know what I paid for this, and you just sort of wing it? Uh, or in other words, how do you copy? You just
You have
know what you got into.
oh,
What's that?
you're just playing right into my wheelhouse here. I know what I've got in it. Let's see. Wait a minute. I paid $1. So when I'm putting stuff on eBay, most of the lots are just cards I got out of the dollar box, and I ship them off to ComC, and I don't have to think, what do I have in it? Oh, let's see. I have $1 in it or less because I may have gotten a discount if I had a quantity. Um, so yeah, that makes it really simple. If I were sending some really expensive cards in with some really cheap cards, but I don't, frankly though, the sunk cost fallacy, I don't even think what I have in it. I just think what's the appropriate price to try to sell this on this venue. Now, I was going to say one more thing about being at a show is that
Yeah,
you're a show dealer sometimes, and if you were to, and I have some good friends. This is controversial that think that you should not mark your cards explicitly at the show. It's too much work. People want to haggle anyway, and so they're just gonna they want to get a dialogue with the person. Again, some people won't even stop and ask, but the people that ask, they're going to engage them in conversation, and they're going to say, "Well, I was thinking about $30 for that, or $300, whatever it is." And the guy says, "Well, I was thinking more like 20 or 200 or something like that." And then they get into a dialogue, and this guy is very personable, has a great presentation, and generally he creates a customer, that the person likes dealing with him. Here's the problem with that I haven't heard very many people talk about, is that when you're not pricing your cards and somebody's asking you when you're really busy, how much for this card, and you don't see it accurately, or you misquote it. It's $100 card, and you think you just forgot, or you mistakenly misspoke and said $20. Then
yeah. I'm a pro.
same deal. Then the problem is the guy ought to just say, "I'll take it."
Yeah,
Rich Klein is the only guy that says that's too low. Most guys say,
yeah,
"Okay," but Rich Klein would say, "Hey, that's really $100 card."
yeah. I'm a pricer. I
Well, then
price
you avoid
cards
that
from my.
problem. Yeah.
Yeah. Here's one of the reasons why I think it's easy if you do it from the start. It's not as hard as if you haven't done it and then decide all of a sudden now I'm going to price everything. Now you're playing catch up. I've done it from Jump Street in day one of doing shows. So, um, you try to be if you're reasonable. Where you get in trouble when you price cards is if you're not reasonable and they're over comps or kind of priced
Well, it's not.
ridiculously, and then people will not. They'll just say, "Oh man, this guy's overpriced," and they'll walk away. Right? Believe it or not, I'm actually kind of a shy guy. So when I'm a consumer at a show, Dr. Jim, and I'm at a table and nothing's priced, I won't say 100%, but I'm more likely not to ask if a price, unless it's something I really, really want or really, really need. I would be probably 75% more likely to buy it from someone who priced it than from someone who didn't. And that's not even saying that the unpriced dealer might even have a better price than the price dealer on the same card. I'm just more likely to not ask. And I don't know if you'll agree with this. I'll get your take on it. I think people are less likely to ask when something's not priced than if something's priced. In other words, someone's looking for the same card. Dealer A has the card but not priced. Dealer B has the card priced. I think they're more likely to go to dealer B, even if dealer B is a little higher than they want to pay for it, and say, "Hey, you've got it for $50. Could you they'll either ask you, could you do better on that, or I'd be willing to pay 35 or $40 if you take that, you have a sale kind of deal." Then for someone to ask someone a dealer who doesn't have a price, like, What's your price on that?
Well, when the person walks up to the table and either stops or doesn't stop, you don't really know what their personality type is. But you're right. There's introverts, there's extroverts, and some people are very analytical, and some people are very gregarious. So I just I think the cop not cop out, but the back the full story is that when you're pricing your cards, just like the cards I'm pricing when I post them to ComC or if I was preparing for a show, I priced them accurately at the time. But after the passage of time, and the hobby moves fast these days, things could go up, things could go down. And so it's not really an apology. It's more of an explanation that, I priced these last month. So those last month's prices are on there. There may be some things that have gone up or gone, but people don't like hearing that because then they think whatever they pick out, you can say, "Oh yeah, that one went up."
Yeah, and I have a sign usually on my table that says, "Any questions, please ask me. I'm here to help you. Not all the inventory is out, so if you're looking for something specific, please let me know. There's a chance it may not be, on the table, but in the backstop." So I've sort of just in my communication letting someone know that I'm, a friendly guy and willing to talk. I tend to, when I was younger, I've told this story. I had terrible bedside manner. I was a shy kid at 15 to the point people thought like my dad was away from the table. They're like, "Oh, wait till your dad," because I had no sort of social. Now someone comes to the table and like, "How are you? How's anything you're looking for?" I kind of will greet them. And some people know me through the podcast, and so I've already doing a local show for 15, 20 years. You get to know people on a first name basis too. That always helps. But I have better social skills now than I did when I first started doing shows, which was terrible, to tell you the truth. I don't know how I did as well. I just think, I guess I priced my stuff right and just had a decent amount of inventory to overcome sort of my lack of whether it's social awareness or bedside manner. But I've vast improved on that. Always, room for more improvement. Sometimes, you get to know some people don't want to have a conversation, right? It's like when I drive Uber, some people will get in the car and want to talk for 20 minutes. Others will be on their phone and just get me where I got to go. So you kind of feel that out. I kind of can tell right away, even going back onto the card show side, I'll say, "Hey, how are you today?" And depending on that answer, you kind of know like this person really not into small talk, just wants to look and decide if they want not anything or not. So I've gotten better at it as an older dealer than I was as a 15-year-old kid in my early teens. It's just a skill I've just kind of honed as I've went along. You know, uh, but I always let it be known, whether it be signage on my table, please feel free to ask me anything or any questions. Like I said, I've always been a pricer. I won't say that 100%. There may be a card or two in a showcase that just because it's kind of a volatile card that sort of just seems to be moving up and down almost consistently, I might leave that unpriced where someone would have to say, "Hey, what are you asking for that?" Have a price on it. So I wouldn't say I'm 100. I'm probably 99% of my stuff is priced, but there's a rare exception if it's a card that's sort of known for fluctuation. So I'll kind of leave that one for at the moment.
Well, you would apply to this rule that I have, and that is that I like to do business with people that I like, and I'm probably even
Yeah.
willing to pay a little bit more. And so, have you ever watched The Masked Singer?
Yeah, I mean, not. I wouldn't say
Okay,
I watch every episode, but I have seen it.
but
I
you
have seen
understand
it.
the concept.
Yeah.
If you were the masked card dealer, everybody would guess you. They would immediately know as soon as you opened your mouth that you're John Newman, Sports Card Nation. And so
Well, some
people are
some
like
people, not
that.
not everyone,
A
not
lot of
every.
people would, after
It's
all these
it,
years. So they would know when you opened your mouth regardless of what
Well,
you're hearing,
let
they would
you know,
say, "Okay, this is John Newman. He's a straight shooter. I'm gonna buy from him. He's gonna give me a good deal."
well, full disclosure, I have one of those retractable, like 7-foot stand up that says Sports Card Nation. So I kind of give it away
Man,
without even opening
that ought to be a
even
positive. That ought to be a
yeah.
positive.
I hope so. I like to think so. But I've had people come up to the table, Dr. Jim, local people like, hey, I've listened to your show a couple times. I didn't know you were in Syracuse. Like that's crazy. You're right here, so it's funny. Like sometimes people don't necessarily know. So I never really make the assumption that obviously I know a lot of people just from doing the shows for 15, 20, 25 years. But there's other people that will, and the show's now on its past its fifth year. There's people still to this day that come up and said, I've listened to some of your shows. I had no idea you were local. So I never assume because you know what
But
happens.
you can
You know,
assume that more people know you than you know them. That's the same thing with me. There's more people that know me that I don't know, as opposed to I know them and they don't know me.
yeah,
Well,
that's a good.
so
Yeah,
no,
I agree with that.
your reach is more than you think. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And sometimes in my older age, Dr. Jim is sometimes I'll forget a name. Like I'll know the person, and I'm like, oh, what's their name again? And you don't want to say the wrong name, so you just say, hey, I was, you kind of avoid saying any name. That's my biggest thing when sometimes when you know so many people after so many years, sometimes the name will escape you in the moment. Sometimes actually during the conversation it'll pop back in your head and then you can say it, but but that's, I guess that's a good problem to have. But I've learned not to, never to assume anything and just kind of play it by ear, so to speak. When it comes to like listing your cards and selling, how much time would you say? I know it's hard to get. You don't have necessarily like a chess clock where you're hitting the button, but on average, what do you think you spend on the selling aspect of the hobby, like per week?
Very little time. I mean, basically, eBay, I have my lots already prepared, and so when somebody makes an offer or buys it full price, I'll either accept the offer or counter or whatever. And so then at the end of the day or during the day, if I've gotten some purchases, I all I got to do is put them in the bag, put a label on it, and take it to the post office. And so that's simple. With ComC, it's even simpler. I'm just saying yes or no to offers. The ones that they pay full price, they just it just they get cards that sell overnight, and so I don't have to do anything. As far as pricing my cards, I'm super fast at that, and it's partly because you have to have done a bunch of price guide books. So I already have a pretty ballpark idea anyway, and so it doesn't take me very long, and that's why I can go to the dollar box because for the average person who's not as up on what's going to sell on ComC and what things are worth, even they it's a better deal for them to sell it in the dollar box. They get their dollar, they're done. They could have gotten $5 on some of them in 5 years, but and I don't know that I'm a flipper in a sense I am, but I'm not like a quick flipper. I'm not pulling out the one card that's the great card. I'm pulling out 100 cards. Um, if it was just one card, I'd feel bad about that. I'm cherry picking their whole dollar box, and I found the one card, but that wouldn't even be fun for me. Okay, are you a dog lover?
I am. I have an
Okay,
Australian cattle
okay,
dog.
okay. Let's say you had a dog, and for whatever reason, your wife or family, somebody was allergic or something, and you had to transact your dog, and it'd be really painful. And so
I
somebody
might transact my wife though,
okay,
Dr.
I'm
Jim.
just saying, but if somebody came up to you and said, "I've seen your dog He looks great. I've seen how you act with him. My son is looking for a dog. Could I could I could I buy your dog and give him a good home?" And you might even say, "Well, you don't even have to give me any money. We're just really trying to find a good home for the dog." Okay. Okay. Now contrast that with somebody comes up and says, "I don't like dogs, but I'll give you $100 for your dog." And you say, "What are you going to do with it?" "Well, I'm going to find him a good home somewhere." That's a flipper. A dog flipper
Yeah,
is no good. I wouldn't want a dog
yeah,
flipper. I don't want a card flipper. I wanna know I wanna find a home for my cards for it's not like my cards are my children or a pet or anything, but I want 'em to find a good home and not, cards that somebody just that, like say flips, that they're gonna auction your dog off to the highest bidder. That just just doesn't sound right to me.
yeah. No, I agree with you. Listen, no one. I think I can speak for both of us here. I don't think anybody will confuse us for someone that's here today, gone tomorrow. When it comes to the hobby, we're in this for the long haul. You've been in it a long time. Continue to be. I started as a 7-year-old kid in 1979, and 44 years later, still here doing shows, doing content. Um, so for us, it's easy to say, but I agree with you. I mean, I tend to, like someone that's loves the hobby, passionate, and
Absolutely.
is in it for the right reasons. If you, I don't know if the right reasons is the right phrase, but loves the hobby, would do it even if it wasn't a money aspect involved. I could stop doing shows today, Dr. Jim, and it wouldn't. I'd still be in the hobby. I'd still be buying cards. So the shows is like you said, when Mike Summer, it's a way to make some money to buy more cards too. The whole self-sustaining model. Now I've went off of that where I've spent more money than I made, at least in the moment, and then you catch up and then hopefully come out ahead when kind of the dust settles. Would you say you spend? So it sounds like more of your time is spent shipping than like
No,
listing or price.
no. More
No,
time on eBay is spent prepping the lots, but they already were in good order, and they're are pre-boxed, and I just take my photos, and then I'm ready to go, and when I answer the questions and I ship it, and so but I'm shipping hundreds of cards at a time, so that's worth it. I would not have the patience to ship 1 card at a time, but that's what I have ComC for. So,
yeah, one of the best things I did a couple years ago, which has been for me personally, and I'm sure for others that use them, that have saved me a lot of time when it comes to shipping, is I bought a thermal printer that you just kind of hit. You print out the label; it's a sticker. You put it on the bubble mailer, the box, depending on the item you're shipping. I used to write that stuff out by hand or print it out on a regular printer, then cut it out, then tape it. So that for me, the thermal printer, which is a Rolo, they're not a sponsor, but I have no problem. I've posted pictures of it. That Rolo thermal printer for me has been like a godsend as far as time wise, especially on a busier day or a busier week, where I can just hit print, 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 stick these on whatever vessel I'm shipping it in. Do you use any tools like that? I mean, how do you?
I expressly do not. I've
Yeah,
done that. I haven't exhaustively done the math, but I do not want another printer of any kind. And so I have a reliable printer, and I have a pair of scissors, and I have plenty of tape, and it's just one less thing. I don't want to have 2 different printers. We have
yeah,
all kinds of printers back at the office, but so I'm trying to keep it simple. It's a little bit more work, but I don't have to. I'm never going to run out of copy paper, and I'm never going to run out of tape, and it's just part
yeah.
of the deal. Hey, I've got a question for you. Okay, another
Sure,
hypothetical about ComC because I want to say
sure.
stuff I haven't said before. So let's say that I've got a card that I bought in the dollar box, or maybe I bought it in a quarter box, but I put it on ComC for 250. So I've got maybe 75 cents in it at that point, or maybe a buck 50. So anyway, I've got 250 in it because that's what I think it's worth. But I did that a number of years ago. So it's sitting there at 250. And all of a sudden, a guy comes along and puts a card up there for 10 bucks. Same card. Okay, so I'm sitting there at 250, he's at $10. Puts it in at 10, and I think, golly, it's gosh, that really might be worth 10 bucks. I priced it 5 years ago. But I don't notice that until that guy makes me an offer on my card. And I can see that he's the same guy that has the $10 card making me a buck and a quarter offer on the 250 card. So what would you do? It's the
I
card now is worth 10 bucks.
Yeah, well, I think he should have bought it for 250 and had two of and lowered. He should have bought yours for 250 and lowered the two cards to $7.
Well, that's
This is similar
they
to the
don't do that.
scenario
They don't do that, but they could, but they don't. They don't.
yeah, this is similar to the story before where like you
Yeah.
just buy it rather than
But it's the same guy buying it at it trying to get an even better deal, even though he stands to gain doubly from price protecting. It's not shill bidding, but it's protecting
yeah.
your own price.
Well, if it's me and I'm the $10 guy and I feel that strong about the card and the $10 position, I'm buying yours for 250 without haggling.
Exactly.
And now I have a choice. I could
Make a
add
choice.
that to it and keep it at 10, or I can say, listen, I just got this one for 250. I'm going to lower both to $7 each and be more apt to sell it quicker and still be come out ahead. That's my take on it. And I don't know if I've done that online. I've probably done that in person. I mean, dealers, you know the deal, Dr. Jim. Even sometimes before the show opens to the general public, we're there, a few hours before the doors open and setting up. And I've had dealers walk around, and I've done it myself, especially if I'm with somebody. But I've had a dealer buy a car from me and said, John, that's a great price. I got one in my case for $100. You're asking 50. Do you mind if I buy? Like they've even asked almost like permission. I'm being very transparent. I'm going to buy this and put it in my case with my other one, maybe lower it a little bit. I'm like, hey, that's what I price it at. What you do with it after that's your business,
Well, they don't
So
that's courtesy to ask you, but they don't have to. They could just say, "I'll
no,
take that." And the plot thickens because in some cases, you could or I could or any dealer could have more than one copy of this $10 card.
yeah,
You could have
and
3 copies of the $10 card, and you've got your 250, whether it's at the show or on
yeah,
COMC or anywhere. And then that point, you think, "I better buy the 250 card because it's making my $10 cards look
and
overpriced."
it's fun. It's funny you mentioned that, Dr. Jim, because I've had that. So I've had one card out like that. That dealer said, "Hey, man, that's a great deal. I've marked mine's marked twice as much as that. Do you mind me buying that?" And I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to put it in my showcase today. And I'm like, hey, I got two more in my box. Do you want all three? Like, and a lot of times they're like, depending on their financial, how much the card is, like, oh man, and
Well,
I'll do all three for the same price as the one that's actually out. And some it's hit or miss. Sometimes I'll take all of them. If you're gonna price them like that, I'll take them all. Or I had a guy, he'll say, I'll take the one. Or what do or I've even had someone ask me, are you gonna price the others the same? And I'm like, probably. I don't know. Like, just buy them all and take the guesswork out of it for me. So, that's more of a scenario I run into as a show dealer from fellow dealers even before the doors even open. And I've done the same thing. I don't want to make it to be a one-way street. I've walked around and found a deal at another dealer's table of a card that I think is well underpriced. And in return, I'll say, and they know who, they know I'm a dealer. I'm like, hey, I think that's a great price. I'm gonna buy it as long as you don't object. I'm going to buy it and probably put it in my case. And I've never told no one, you can't do that, and I've never had anyone say you can't do that either. So just sale just occurs, and once you buy a card, it's yours to do with as you please. So that's where I've run into that scenario the most. One last question I have for you when it comes to the selling aspect. I buy a card from Dr. Beckett. You ship it. When I get it, will I know who it came from? Is there any indicator?
I hope not. No,
So
I'd like to be kind of anonymous. I think otherwise I'd
yeah,
get too much. I already get enough mail and emails and other kind of stuff. So I want my inventory to stand on its own merit, not people, because some
yeah,
people might pay extra. I don't want them to pay extra. I just want them to,
yeah,
if they want it, it's a good deal. And if it's overpriced, every once in a while I go back through and I will, like I said, 99% of the time it's lowering the price. I hadn't sold for a few years, and I think, well, you know what? I thought it was worth that, and nobody else thinks that. And even though I've got a lot of price guides I've written, they're not. They're mostly last century, John. So
yeah.
so
I
I
hear
know
you.
what's scarce, but demand is fickle. So I'm going to lower the prices, and I'm going to gradually do it. And that's pretty. That's not exhausting, but it's frustrating. If you were a show dealer and every month, if prices went down, or every time you priced your inventory, you're mainly marking things down further, that's depressing. And so that's what I'm doing with ComC. On the other hand, if it isn't selling, you got to do something. Otherwise, you're just gonna sit there with a museum that you're not charging admission. You're paying to
Yeah,
have those cards there. So yeah,
yeah,
so I'm gonna lower my prices, and that's a little bit bittersweet. And yet, like you said, I'm gonna know that if almost everything I paid a dollar or less for, and so if I lower it to $2, I'm probably still making money. If I lower it to $1.50, well, maybe I'm. But again, it's just sitting there. My goal is to get it in the hands of somebody that wants it.
yeah, yeah. No, I agree. And one of my rules, like my DBA as far as selling cards is JN Enterprises. There's no sports cards attached to it. I don't like shipping,
Oh,
whether it's
good point.
whether it's someone paid for, or even if I'm sending something like a giveaway from the show. I don't like having sports cards anywhere on the outside of that package, kind of denoting what
Yeah,
might be in that. So, but what I do is inside I have business cards. So I have a
yeah,
show business card. I have one for Hobby News Daily, one for Hobby Hotline. So I have like three business cards. So they may realize it after a purchase or after they receive it, like, oh, this is from John Newman. It's funny because I've had eBay feedback where people, given a positive feedback and said, hey, I love awesome shipping, great packaging, and I love your show too. That sort of thing. Or someone posts
yeah,
on social media, hey, I bought this card, had no idea that it was from John Newman of Sports Card Nation. Pretty cool moment. And they'll post the card in my like business card, that sort of thing. But I don't advertise it like pre-sale or anything like that. But it's always funny after the fact if someone sort of denotes it. But anything I ship, if it's cards, you would not know by any kind of packaging or wording or anything. I don't even like putting, photo, do not bend or anything like that. I just well protect it with cardboard and I'm more apt to send it in a bubble mailer with padding anyway. So,
yeah.
but all right, enough with selling. Not that there's anything wrong with that. We're in 2024 here, Dr. Jim. We're headed towards the next national, which this year will be in Cleveland, Ohio. I've never been to Cleveland, period, let alone to a national there. It's a 5 hour for me. It's a 5 hour and 10 minute drive. So unlike Chicago, I will be driving to Cleveland. I had to fly to Chicago, so I will have my vehicle. I'm going to go in a day earlier and check out the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That's something on my bucket list I can check off. You've been to every national, so you've been to the previous ones in Cleveland. The convention center had some issues and then had to close. It's now operational. For those like me, Dr. Jim, who've never been to a Cleveland National, you know, what would you say? How's it different, or is it not necessarily that much different? And then, as you very well know, and I know, and a lot of other people know, it's under new leadership as well. So I guess what should people expect? Maybe comparatively, since it's in Chicago so much, with the Cleveland National factor in also with the new leadership group.
Well, Cleveland's an kind of old school town, original baseball town, lots of great collectors there. So there was always a great knowledgeable collecting base. I did a lot of the shows in Ohio and Cleveland in specific back in the 70s when I was at Bowling Green. And so the Cleveland guys were great. And so there were always good shows there. The IX Center is is like a bunker. It's not a hotel ballroom. It's just like a airport hangar or something. It's just huge ceilings, but lots of light. It's not near anything, so you've got a lot. You've got uh, dozens. I don't know, a couple dozen probably medium-sized hotels and motels that are decent within a couple miles. So it's all there near the airport. And, so you won't have any trouble getting lodging, I don't think. It's just that none of them are closer than a mile, and maybe that's because it's like a bomb shelter. You're not gonna be close to that, but there's shuttles that run, you can rent a car, although I don't know that if you're driving, you're gonna be in good shape. There's ample parking there. Um, it's well done, John. You're gonna have a great time. Like I say, the drivability is an important part of why Cleveland was chosen for the East Coast people to be able to drive. Um, but the room is laid out very rectangularly, and so that's a positive. So you'll be able to find where you want to go. Again, it's not plush. The restaurants are terrific in Cleveland. A lot of ethnic, great restaurants, but they're going to be a little bit of a drive. And so I don't know. There's no huge main hotel, and so the trade nights are probably going to need to be in the room and not. There may be some little things going on at some of these hotels, but it's most of the hotels are medium size. They're not gigantic host hotels for a huge show. Um,
I've heard people say, and I'll let you answer that, but I'm driving, so this may not be come into play for me as much. I've heard people say if you're not driving, in other words, if you're flying in, you want to book your lodging as early as you can to be as close.
yeah.
And I think you kind of said that with
It's
your
1 mile
response.
as opposed to 2 miles. I mean, it's basically, some of them. There may be some hotel shuttles as well as the National may have some shuttles that have a route for some of the smaller, farther out hotels. But I don't think you'd wanna get a cab or an Uber. You're really only talking about a few miles, but you really wouldn't walk. And there are dealers or people that have vans that give rides. I mean, they leave on the hour or the half hour at these things, and so if you're down at breakfast at one of the hotels, it's cool. There's a lot of hobby people, and you could get a ride, or you'd give somebody a ride. So it works out. It's not as big a problem as you would think because each hotel has. It's like each hotel's taken over by collectors. How cool is that?
Yeah, and we see that, it really doesn't matter what city it's going to be in. That's going to be kind of par for the course. Going to the new leadership group. Do you expect? Do you expect much difference, or you think it's just going to be a different city in the same great show? I mean, what on as far as with the leadership, do you think they'll come in and make some changes right away, or you think they'll
I'm a
take their time?
I'm a big fan of the new guys, but I was a huge fan of John Brogy, and Mike Burkus was a close friend. But that that ran its course. I mean, the committee had the chance to make a change, and they did. And what's done is done. So, having said that, I think Joe Drellick and his team. Let me say this completely. Number one is I think the show will not be as good as last year because Cleveland is not as good as Chicago. But what Joe and his team will do, it'll be better than the previous Cleveland because Cleveland needs to be compared to Cleveland. I think they're going to do a great job. They're going to add some wrinkles. I don't know all the things they would do, but I think it's going to be bigger and better than the last Cleveland show. But it would take a lot to surpass the Chicago show. The John Brogy and his team really went out with a bang. They really hit a home run. So it's going to be great. I hope everybody comes because it's the building can hold it. There will be less dealers because there's less square footage than they had in Chicago. It'll be configured better, but there'll be less dealers. There'll be less tables, less booths.
That being said, do you think it'll be tighter in there with less space and more people potentially, or similar type crowd? Do you think it'll be? I know last year was a record setter. They said I never felt cramped as much as I did with the previous Chicago show with the added square footage.
No,
How do you feel like this
you,
will
you
be?
you didn't go to the places I went then. It was very cramped at times in some of the areas of Chicago last year because if it was a popular table, some of the aisles were narrower than others in the newer spaces that they broke out. I think Cleveland is going to be more rectangular and regular, and it's never been a problem. It'd be a great problem to have if it's crowded, but I don't think it will. I think they're going to configure it in a way that it's going to be busy. And like I said, there's just not as much population within 100 miles of Cleveland as there is Chicago. I think in Chicago, you're really pulling from a big, again, even better collecting area with two teams, not just one.
Yep, no doubt. Well, you're right about one thing. If you need a ride, Dr. Jim, I will have my
Okay.
vehicle with me. Be sure to get a hold of me. We'll make sure you get to where you got to be, and same with me. And like you said, you know me very well. No friend left behind. So
You are a mensch for
my
sure.
mantra. I appreciate it. So, as always, we look forward to another national and keeping your streak
It's going to be great.
going
It's going to be
as well. I've started my streak, but I don't think I'll ever catch up to you. So,
just enjoy each year. It's like I said, if it's I don't even know how Joe Drellick is going to make it better, but that's a goal that they have to make it better, not just do the same thing. So I think they're going to innovate, and if they innovate in three things and two of them work, let's say thank you for the two things that did work instead of dwelling on the third thing
yeah,
that was a nice try.
yeah, no, I agree. Well, Dr. Jim, as always, I appreciate you coming on, sharing your insights. Speaking of insights, check out Dr. Jim's podcast, Sports Card Insights. What's it, 3 times a week now? I think Monday, Wednesday,
Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Friday.
Yep.
Yeah. And awesome. It's got a great catalog. I'm sure most people have listened to it, but for some strange reason, if you haven't, check it out. And
It's pretty
again, I
overwhelming. It's just like you. There's too many in the queue. People get intimidated. You've got hundreds of episodes. So do I.
I know it's crazy. It's crazy. But well, Dr. Jim, be well. We'll talk soon. And thanks again.
Thanks, John. Enjoyed it.